Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Cartography, our series of short films where we're going to discuss aspects of making maps, how to make them a little bit better, tips and tricks of the trade, and how to become a smarter map maker. And joining me for this episode is, well, frankly, we can't get rid of him, is John Nelson.
Hello.
Over here. And Nathan Shepherd is also joining me.
Hi.
Ken Field, and we're going to get going with talking about 3D in this episode. Wow. Let's get our cards on the table here. John and I would occasionally call ourselves cartographers, and this gentleman here is...
Not a cartographer.
Yeah, okay. So you've joined us for a MOOC on cartography, but 3D is kind of a special thing. Yeah?
Extra special. Extra special.
I wouldn't go that far.
It's important. It has less rules than cartography, which is, I think, why I like it.
So I've often called myself a 3D skeptic. Right?
You have?
I sometimes struggle to think, why would I make a map in 3D when, I can make a pretty good, convincing, compelling map in 2D. Mm-hmm. So this whole episode really is about you convincing us, I think.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. I need a lot of convincing when it comes to 3D. Oh, we should do this in 3D. And I say, why? And they say, because it might look cool.
It might look cool, Michael. You do have to be careful. 3D can be dangerous. It's not for everybody. And not all maps work out well in 3D. And people will go and look at them. The clickbait.
And that's it. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need. Scene. We got it.
So, all right, let's go back then to sort of basics. So, we've been talking about a lot of maps during these episodes, and predominantly in 2 dimensions. Planimetric, so just as though we're looking down on the Earth.
Yep.
And, dealing with those basic fundamental principles of cartography as they apply to a 2D map. So if we're going to go into the 3D realm, maybe lead us through 1 or 2 things that are fundamentally different.
Yep.
And how that makes us think differently.
Yeah, I think the first thing you need to ask yourself is, why am I going to 3D? So usually the answer is you're communicating something that doesn't work well in 2D. So like a building or whatever, building from above, you can't see anything. If you want to see it's really high, how tall it is, you want to see it in conjunction with other buildings, it's really a good example where you would go 3D. So then what? Okay, so you go to 3D, you can't just throw some stuff in and have it look good. You need to think about how everything's going to fit together. You have to think about continuous scale. So I know you map guys, you love talking about scale. In 3D, you look at something side on and it's continuous scale. It's different scales. Every 1 meter along there, it's a different scale. So you have to think about how things are going to work together. You have to think about hiding things off in the distance, distance-based culling rather than scale-based.
Distance-based culling. So by that you mean what to stop showing at a certain distance from the eye?
Yep. Yeah, and it's not just what different stuff to show, but also what level of detail to show. So I've got this handy cow here. I wasn't planning to use the cow, but now I saw the cow.
Here we go.
The cow's in.
It's got a bell.
Yeah. So like at a certain distance, this cow looks like a cow. But if you get too close to it, I don't know if you could have a closer look at that cow, you start to see that it's actually...
That's the wrong end of the cow, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Thank you.
Nice. You can see that it's actually made up of like sculpted faces that don't look like a cow when you get really close, but from a certain distance, it looks really good. You have to do that with all of your content. A tree, when you get close to it, you want to see bark, you want to see some leaves, you might want to see some birds in a bird nest maybe, perhaps. But when you get further away, it can just be a blurry green thing, and that's totally fine. So you have to think about continuous scale.
I think that's quite similar to the points of generalization we spoke about in a different episode, where at different map scales you want to see more or less detail.
And the challenge with 3D is that you're kind of dealing with that all in one go, all in one view, whereas one of the niceties of a 2D is you have to think about it once per map.
When you look outside, things that are far away are smaller. And that's the same thing in a 3D view. So you might want to use an axonometric.
You pulled out the big words
I did. Well, isometric, you could also use that perhaps.
Well, tell us the difference between isometric and axonometric.
I don't want to.
Okay.
They're very similar. They're very similar.
Well, one has kind of a forced perspective.
Isometric is a form of axonometric.
And one of them keeps this false sense of even height and just has a kind of a 2.5D effect, right?
Well, are you talking about, so perspective is where it gets smaller in the distance.
Yeah, towards a vanishing point.
Yes, that's perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, axonometric or isometric, you kind of use them. The rays are parallel.
Okay.
So things that are way off in the distance are the same size as if they're close.
And scale is equivalent across the whole map.
Yeah, and it looks good and it doesn't lie. It's really easy to lie with 3D. It's easy to lie with maps. It's super easy to lie with scenes.
So my basic kind of principle, if I'm going to go into 3D, is for a natural feature, for a physical map, I'm quite happy with perspective.
Yep.
Because it is how we see the landscape.
Yep.
We look out of an aeroplane window and we see, we see things moving off. It's something, if you look down, it's kind of planimetric, and then as you look off into the distance, it becomes more perspective. But for a thematic, I would perhaps go for the isometric if I'm in 3D.
Yeah, you might also notice a lot of university campuses have the isometric, axometric. It looks kind of a little bit freaky, but it makes more sense as you wander around it, like visually. So for me, I think you also need to think about the delivery mechanism. So with maps, it's a map. You print it. Here's your map. Have a good time. Like you do. Have trouble folding it, that kind of stuff. But with 3D, you might want to, there's a couple of different ways of sharing it. One is as a static image, and that's where axonometric works really well, because you can't get confused by zooming around and freaking the brain out. So axometric's good for that. But if you want to have it exploratory, then you want a 3D scene that people can go around. They can go wherever they want, and that's quite good for realistic scenes when you want to go to a city.
I think the context and the medium is important in 3D. I think you're right, because it overcomes some of the limits. So even if you deal with something in across a curved surface, if you have that ability to interact with the map, to turn it around and see the other side, that overcomes a lot of the historic problems of 3D mapping.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things like that. The hidden content problem is a big problem with 3D. So like, let's say I want firehouses in a downtown city, and I just put like a little marker in front of the building for where the fire truck comes out. I wouldn't be able to see them because all the other buildings get in the way. So I put a giant stick with a billboard on top, and now we're into 3D cartography, right? It's like this big stick, and now I can go around, I can see where all of the fire stations are and zoom around.
What I think is fascinating about 3D is, certainly from what I've seen, is there was, in the early days of sort of 3D mapping, a tendency to try and make everything realistic. Let's get it as realistic as we possibly can. Let's make this look like the real world. Let's invent the real world in a fake world. And I kind of see a trend more towards trying to do that simplification, that generalization, that symbolization, and to make it more abstract. And maybe that's to do with the cost. Maybe it's easier to render and cheaper to render and quicker. But maybe it's also, as in 2D cartography, we want to get it down to its bare simplistic facts so it's easy to interpret.
Again, just back to the visual variables, you can just, if you've got a city and you're seeing all of the beautiful buildings, but you want to know which ones are in trouble for earthquake proofness, you want to color them red or something. You want to find a way of communicating. So just like maps communicate, scenes need to communicate too. And when they do, you want to use thematics a lot more than you want to use realistic.
Yeah, and interesting you picked on red there, the use of colour to signify danger. So there's a convergence then, I'm getting the feel for 3D borrowing from some classic cartography, some 2D, and then 2D perhaps infiltrating a little bit.
I think so. I think a lot of the things that are done in 2D do apply in 3D and should be reused in 3D.
And for this episode, we're going to have a map of the week and also a person of the week, and it's going to be in one
rolled all into one amazing package. Beautiful.
Of 3D loveliness.
Tactile.
So earlier on, you said 3D can be eye candy.
Yep.
Yeah, and we use a lot of eye candy for tourist mapping to attract people to places, and to give people something really interesting to look at. And I'd like to propose Heinrich Baran, the Austrian, and a lot of his panoramic mapping as something just to think about and to enthuse people to go to explore.
Something to look up and be amazed.
Amazing.
Marvel at this.
I think what's interesting is Heinrich Baran, like a lot of these panoramic artists, wasn't a cartographer either.
What?
Yeah, I know. These people just infiltrate, and
the best ones.
Get away with it, and it's great stuff.
It's pretty handy with the paintbrush.
Absolutely. So Baran in the mid-1900s started painting landscapes, kind of in aspect. And if you looked at the combination of a photograph of what he's painting, it looks nothing like it because he moves mountains, he exaggerates the height of peaks.
He'll rotate a mountain to show you the more interesting face that is.
And he'll put cloudscapes in that.
Amazing cloudscapes.
They don't exist in reality, but they look absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Then every now and then there might be a little building that's completely the wrong size, but it just shows you that there's someone there, there's a house there, or there's a lodge there. It looks really cool.
So I think the map that I'd like to think a little bit about is the Yellowstone map. He did a series in the early 1960s for the National Park Service in the US of, I believe it was 4 different national parks. And they're just lovely pieces of work that were used to promote the national park, and nothing more. It was just a...
Yeah, you look at it, you just want to go there. You just want to be there. It's amazing. The colours are so saturated.
Yeah, like sun glints on the lakes. I think there's a house with a little smokestack.
Yeah, exactly.
It's absolutely wonderful.
And the clouds, a nice cloudy day, just enough clouds that it's interesting, but not too much. It's really nice.
So I think Heinrich Behrmann was one of these classic panoramic artists, and I would encourage people to check out a lot of the work of these other non-cartographers who have given us these beautiful maps.
Yeah.
See what we've got today. Wow, that's interesting. Look at these.
That thing.
Nathan.
I'll take these.
Give those a whirl.
I'm the only one not wearing glasses already. Oh, yes. Oh, you look so deep.
Thank you.
And full of...
As opposed to his normal...
Shallow.
One-dimensional shallow.
Yeah. I just need to paint you a bit more with green and red.
Just
We're brutal.
crack me up.
So 3D glasses. This is, so one side's green and one side's red, or bluish in this case.
It's blue.
It's blue. And what you do is you filter out what's coming into one eye versus the other eye, and you get some depth perception, makes things pop out. Probably been to the movies and used the more modern equivalent with the polarized lenses. You can also get the shutter ones where they actually, they flicker, they look after you nicely.
So the image you're seeing, there's actually 2 images, right? And
That's
they're slightly offset.
Yep.
And so each eye is seeing a different image, but your brain is putting them together.
One direction of that offset versus the other is slightly tinted red or slightly tinted blue?
For the anaglyph?
Yes.
Yeah. And the other set that I've used is a chromostereoscopic set, where you've got little prisms in the glasses, and so they convert colour so that you see red very close up and you see the colours of the rainbow progressively distant. And so you can in fact use that to give an illusion of depth in the map. And actually there's one behind us, so that red map back there uses chromostereoscopy. So red is near and blue is further back. It's kind of an interesting way of using 3D in an inventive way.
Little tid.
What about this?
Oh, look at that.
Hey, that's real 3D, right?
There we go. Look at this thing. So this is actually the top of a chocolate box. And it's the topography of Switzerland. And it's got incredible
What does Switzerland
detail.
have to do with chocolate, I wonder?
Not a thing. I don't know. It's strange product placement. But they actually have the topography built in, and you can get the height of the mountains and see how everything works together. And they've got a regular old 2D map draped over the top, so you can see the names of all of the lakes and the towns. And I've actually created a little video where I grabbed my camera and went really close to the ground along here. So like just miniaturized.
Oh, cool.
And I tweeted it out, and people thought it was like our software rendering stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I have one final example, which I need to go down here. I'm going to give you those first of all.
Oh, excellent.
You can describe what those are.
They're green.
So
I know what this is.
What?
I know what this is.
We keep waiting for you to explain it.
You actually know something?
Yes, I think
Come on.
I must have caught just the tail end of the life cycle of these.
There we go. So what have we got there, Mr. Nelson?
They're wonderful things. They're wonderful things. So what I'm doing is I'm looking through a couple of lenses at 2 views of the same geographic location, each photograph taken from a slightly different angle, perhaps a different pass of a plane angle. And when I see them at the same time, your mind will force them into a perspective. And you'll actually see raised and lowered elevation dimension. And they converge in your mind, and your mind constructs that 3D environment.
But this isn't just for kicks. You know, this had a practical purpose of photogrammetry, of plotting contour lines and heights onto topographic maps. So that was a positive box of Map tricks this week. Lots to
Look,
think
I
about.
feel great about it, having known what it actually was.
Well, I'm glad we brought one to the table that you
Thank
actually
you.
know something about.
Thank you.
And our final piece for today is thinking about some of our pet peeves and carto fails for 3D. One or two we've mentioned already, but Nathan, perhaps you want to kick off with something that really gets you.
I have to let you know that you can't use this word. There is no such word as height. There's no th on the end. It's height with just a T.
But what if you say it right after width? Is it okay then?
Then it's more prevalent. People say it, you might get a pass once, but if you say it twice, I'm sorry.
I suspect you won't give someone a pass.
That's 80% of my workouts is throwing people outside windows from saying height. You can't do that. So
Height.
never say height, please.
Well, I'll be shouting that every time I walk past your office.
I'll work it out.
So, John, pet peeve.
Well, we kind of mentioned it earlier, but my pet peeve with 3D mapping is seeing base maps that are pre-labeled in 2D, which then get draped and stretched out down along mountain faces and that sort of thing. So reserve labeling for the 3D environment if your base map is going to be used.
Yeah, especially even if you look at this, even if it's like a lake and it's dead flat, you zoom around to the other side and
It's upside down.
It's upside down.
Yeah. It's 3D.
Yes.
Take advantage of that.
Yeah. So 3D thematics for me, a lot of them across a curved surface don't make any sense. And it bothers me because the whole basis of understanding a thematic map is to compare one place to another. And if you're using the 3D, as we've already mentioned, you've got all that problem of occlusion and scale, complicating, and your brain is just saying, oh, look, everything in the foreground is bigger
Yep.
and everything in the background, therefore it must be more important. No, it's just nearer to you. And I guess maybe a final one is back to this idea of reality versus abstraction.
Yeah, I hate that too. If you're going to make a 3D view, please don't say height. And also, don't just try to recreate the real world. Don't look outside your window and say, I want to make something like that. Think about how you want to communicate. What are you trying to tell people? You're making something to communicate a message and some information. Use cartographic techniques in 3D. You'll love it.
So you're starting to sound like a cartographer.
I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I'm reluctant. You need to convince me. Maybe we can start
Well,
again.
you're starting to sound like one.
There we go.
So I think that brings us to the end of this episode. We've had some fun with 3D, and use 3D with caution. It can be great. Yeah.
Look at this 3D biscuit you have here.
It's biscuit time.
Naturally happens.
Sweet.
Oh, it's biscuit time.
Yeah, help yourself,
Nathan,
please.
help yourself to.
There's
a
no
biscuit.
wrong choice.
Oh, there's no wrong choice? Well, you always take the roof. That's the rule. Thank you very much.
All right.
Please do.
Thanks to you. Thank you.